All right.
Yeah, Matt. How are you, my trading warrior brother? I'm not. The only thing I'm seeing is you're sharing your screen, and it looks like your desktop.
It just that's just my phone. I'm using my
Oh,
S9 Galaxy
oh,
phone.
okay. You're so advanced.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I have a hard time using iPhones.
Yeah.
After I got sick about 5 years ago, I gave up a cell phone and used a landline, and I'm like an 2-year-old with an iPhone. So You know, I really appreciate, since I've had you on before Panama, you're always, sending me DMs with your thoughts and certain things that you believe in and your philosophy. So, I want to start off with your philosophy about people stacking precious metals during this time frame, and what's your rationale for doing it?
Well, I became a stacker in 2015. That's really Jim Rickards kind of helped convert me on that, and also I'd seen, it was a big bubble that ran from 2011, crashed really violently, and it seemed like a good thing to try and knife catch. I mean, recently, when
Did you bring any charts? Otherwise, I'll show my screen. Did you bring any?
I just got the notification last night to come on. I don't really have charts ready, so
okay, because I've seen some nice charts from you before. Okay, I'm showing mine. I'm going to show mine then. Okay, while we're talking about gold and silver, you'll still be able.
If you go to my Twitter, my Twitter feed,
yeah,
I have a chart at the top.
It's okay.
One of my top tweets. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to show my screen. All right, so crude breaking down for me. Nice. Okay, you see, you're my lucky charm, man. So, okay, so in 2015, that was after the 2011 peak of what, $50 silver, $1,900 gold. Where was gold and silver in 2015 when you began to stack it?
Well, it was really around summer of 2015 that I really got. I mean, pretty close to. I didn't get the exact low. No one ever gets the exact low in anything, but I got pretty close on gold. Under 1100 is when I really started to heavily invest in that. And just to give a quick summary of what led me to even get to that point before that, I was.
Let's go back to. You're going to go back to Katrina here?
I'll make it very quick summary. Yeah, I was on the police in Katrina in New Orleans during the hurricane, and I was in downtown New Orleans after that, and it was quite a mess as far as organization and the collapse of structure. and to this day, I still value running water quite a bit. I don't take it for granted whenever I have clean running water, which is funny because you think we're being on a river and you just walk up to the river. No, you can't just do that. But so it did give me kind of a skeptical view of power structures,
the fragility of them. That everyone thinks that FEMA is going to rescue them, but we've seen example after example since Katrina. So, probably what you experienced, and it kind of led to a paradigm shift for you. You could probably say there are millions with some of the natural disasters that have happened in our country, let alone the world, that start to appreciate everything that we take for granted. So, okay, so you lost confidence in government during that experience, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the traditional systems, safety checks that are supposed to be in place that don't really exist, even though you think they do. And we're all aware of the fractional banking reserve system and how your local bank only has a tiny amount of money if a lot of people went to go hit the ATM or try to do a bank run or withdrawal.
Rickards talked about the ATMs going dry. I remember that. You think that's going to happen?
I think it's possible. I mean, there's all sorts of natural disasters and terror attacks, all sorts of things that could trigger that kind of run. I really don't think it's necessary for metals to move higher here. I mean, in 2011, it took like a 7-8% drop in a dollar. It wasn't a big drop. And during that time period, silver doubled. Well, the dollar only dropped like less than 8%. So you don't need hyperinflation for silver to just go crazy from these prices because it's been so cheap for so long and it's been suppressing. Mining production's dropping rapidly. It's like down 20% last year, as it should be. You can't profitably really mine at these prices. I know you guys do a lot of technical analysis here. I do technical analysis as well, but in the commodity markets, I'm sure you're aware of this, commodities are much more news and fundamental sensitive. And you've seen like this in oil. Oil, you'll see this great chart setup, but then some news comes out of Saudi Arabia or somebody says something and suddenly it's up or down 10% in like 5 seconds. It's like,
okay.
Commodity markets,
I want to get even more down to the gut level with metals here, and price projection, what they say about opinions. Everyone has one. What I'd like to know is from you, and I bought some silver, and it's if you're stacking it, it's heavy, it's cumbersome. Where do you store it, Matt? I mean, what's the right way to secure it? If you threw 20K at physical silver, what do you do with it?
Well, that is why people who are just getting into stacking, you should stick with bars, 100-ounce bars. You can get them for 59 cents over spot at Atmex.
What do you do with the bars?
Well, they're really not. Even if you get a little tarnish on them, cleaning it off is not as hard as, say, if it's a coin. Like, let's say you have 500 coins in a bucket somewhere hidden, and they all get tarnished. Now you got to clean 500 coins. Well, cleaning a 100-ounce bar, it'll take you, 2 minutes or less. And even then, a lot of people who haven't stored or own silver, that's a risk as far as storage of but it's not like rust. It's not just going to eat away all the way through it. If you throw like a silver coin or 100-ounce bar in a salt water in the ocean, leave it there for 100 years and come back, and then clean the tarnish off and then weigh it on a scale, it wouldn't have lost even 1% of its mass. Whereas, like, you throw certain types of metal in the ocean, they're going to rot all the way through. And so it's storing silver it's not difficult. It doesn't take the heaviness is actually, I think that's a benefit, because if you get hit by a flood, if your house gets hit by a plane, if it collapses, there's an earthquake, it's not going to move that far.
How about a robbery?
Well, that's the thing. Jumping a fence with heavy silver, some robber jumping out your window, running, they're not going to be able to run.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's harder to run.
You make it inconvenient for a thief unless they're taking steroids and benching 4 1/4 for them to run away with a lot of silver. Whereas if you had 10 gold coins, that's grandma could put them in her purse.
Right, and that's one of the things about gold and silver is their durability versus storing money in fine wine or art or collectible cars. Those things are all very fragile, very easily damaged, and gold is basically immortal. Gold, you could store gold in your oven and it wouldn't be damaged. You can't damage gold at all, no matter what you do. That's why when people ask, well, what good is it? It's durable and extremely rare, and that's two things. They say that about diamonds, but now they're making diamonds in the lab. They're making diamonds in labs that are nearly indistinguishable because it's just carbon and heat. It's just really compressed hot carbon. So there's really nothing to compare as far as rarity and durability. There's things that are rare.
I read a story about a guy who knew he was had a terminal disease, knew he's going to die, didn't want to leave a cent to his kids, so he liquidated all his real estate and his bonds and everything, and he had a vision of an angel, and he asked the angel if he could bring one suitcase with him up there. And the angel said, no, you can't bring anything. But the angel got an exception from St. Peter at the gate. So the guy converted everything into gold bars, all right, 100-ounce gold bars, put them in a suitcase. When he passed, he got to the gate, and St. Peter said, you can't bring this in here. You can't. He said, well, the angel said that you would let me bring one suitcase. He goes, oh, yeah, I remember. And St. Peter goes, let me take a look at what you have in there. So the guy opens the suitcase, and St. Peter says, why did you bring pavement?
I've not heard that one. I get it, but
the streets are made anyway. It's a joke. So anyway, all right. So you're not afraid of storing it, and a lot of people are. And what do you say to people that want to store things and say a safety deposit box at a bank? It's possible that if there is a banking problem, you're not going to be able to get to your box, are you?
Well, most safety deposit boxes are totally manual. You have a key, and the vault attendant has a key. So even if the computer systems are down, there should be a window of like a day or a few hours where you can get there and still get your stuff out. I mean, for the government to go into your safety deposit boxes, that means things have gone really, really, really bad, and that is unlikely.
Yeah. Well,
so it's not a bad option because
that would be the 30s. The 30s.
Yeah, it's not a bad option keeping stuff in the safety deposit box, because even for various government agencies to get into your box, it's not easy. They really have to get like a serious court order. They got to go in there. They got to drill through the lock. They don't just have, a little button they hit where it just pops open and they can just go peek or look or take at any time. So if for some reason, you live in a really small apartment, or that is a good you're within walking distance of the bank, because you can get there before the stampede, when you see an emergency starting, it's not a bad option really for gold. Now, as far as like what coins, I was saying, well, silver, you just go buy bars. Well, with coins, like for example, SD Bullion right now, they got a sale on Maple Leaf pure gold coins, $19 over spot. I think it ends today, but usually it's only $25 or between $20 and $25 over spot. And that's, you can get kangaroos for that too. You can get Philharmonics, and those are great coins. You don't have to buy antiquated coins. You don't have to buy the graded coins. You don't have to buy. You don't even have to buy eagles. Eagles tend to be a little more expensive
because they're supposedly going to be legal tender and can't be confiscated. Correct? Is that why people pay a premium?
I don't believe confiscation is ever going to happen again. Even people make the point that during the last confiscation, very few people complied and no one really checked. It was one of those laws where
I like those kind of laws.
It's what you can imagine enforcing that in America nowadays, asking people, "Hey, turn in your jewelry." People are just it wouldn't work. I don't believe there's ever going to be confiscation again. They will drive up. Now, in an emergency, the price, if it hits 5,000, 10,000, well, people will just be selling, running in like they were in 1980 and just selling it. So it'll be hard to find just from people trying to liquidate it to get cash from the price it's going to. I mean, I don't believe hyperinflation is coming. I believe a replay of Japan is coming. And that's also why, and I've made this point, I did some tweets yesterday, that a lot of people are thinking the market, it'll crash here, or it's just going to go straight up. Well, the third option is we start chopping sideways. But as we chop sideways, and I know you guys are doing analysis before this on how the dollar can go a little higher. Well, I think not only do you have Trump, screaming for QE, you have Bloomberg coming out yesterday. You have mainstream publications saying, hey, inflation is so low, we should do QE right now. Inflation's just too low. We need to do it. It's insane with, asset prices where they are. But I can tell you why the Fed is starting to do this and why they're starting to get dovish. And it's very simple. And that is they and their friends who live in upstate New York, the real estate bubble there is popping. High-end real estate in New York is in some areas down 20, 25%. It's down big. And a lot of that is just because, QE has enriched people who are already rich, but it's not creating new rich people. So this is why the real estate, if you look at the median home price, and this data came out a few days ago, median home price since Donald Trump got inaugurated, it's gone nowhere. There's been no gain in median home price, which if this was a booming economy, that median home price should be up 20%, 30%. It's not going up.
Like into 07? Like they behaved into 07, they're not behaving that way on this recovery in real estate. Is that what you're saying?
because too much of the money is concentrated in hands basically in baby boomer hands. It's again replay of Japan, where the QE there enriched the much older generations, but you see the younger people there, they're not getting married, they're very broke, they're working 12 hours a day, just like kids here or young people driving for Uber.
How about old people?
There's also there's middle class and lower class old people who just did that.
Not every boomer, a lot of boomers are falling to the wayside here too. They're not all set up. In fact, a lot of them are renting the house they lost that's now owned by a hedge fund.
Right, and the other sort of red flag is the retail apocalypse, which we're seeing, and you're seeing that phrase everywhere. It started as a trickle 6 months ago, retail apocalypse, and now mainstream, it's like 75,000 stores are going to close.
When's the recession/depression start?
I think it already. If you look at housing, house prices, and you look at retail, it started already, and people are just coming up with like this excuse that the retail weakness is just everyone going to Amazon. It's garbage, because casual and sit-down restaurants, with a few exceptions like Chipotle, but if you look like Red Robin, or you look at places,
people don't have disposable to go to restaurants.
Right. The young people are not going to sit-down restaurants. That's okay. And they're not buying cars, and they're not buying houses, and it's just
because they're burdened with student debt.
They're burdened with the student debt, right? And I think the Fed made a really big mistake with this V bottom from December, with all the dovish QE talk, because the next time the market rolls over, they're going to have to back it up with action. They can't just jawbone. If the market goes down 7-8% next month and a month after, and the Fed comes out and says, "Oh, hey, we're dovish," everyone's going to go, we already know that. You have to back. You can't just keep saying we're dovish. You have to actually do something, and they will have to actually do something. And then you get the scenario of the market goes sideways for 1 or 2 years, but the dollar dropped 30-40%, and that's
that's the real linchpin because the dollar still looks great. And I know guys that are very good that still have higher numbers. So the linchpin, but there, dollar could go up, and we've seen it over the last 6 months. Dollar could be stable to up, and gold could rally. It did. So why don't we shift gears a little bit? Because I understand your philosophy, but when the Fed has to back it up is when we're going to have a more dramatic and persistent move up in precious metals. Am I reading you right?
Yeah, and there's this perception that, well, if the market just keeps going up, it'll turn the Fed hawkish again. But the real estate market is so weak right now in terms of prices that I think they're getting impatient, because we all know the Fed, they really make decisions based on the value of their mansions and their friends' mansions. And if you look at the higher end areas in New York, that's a nightmare. So all they're thinking is, if my house is going down in value, well, we're going to do QE, and now it's your problem. And that's how it's been. People expect the Fed to do the noble or the moral thing, but they literally have a button on their desk that can make them and their friends richer anytime. And
Jekyll Island.
Yeah, well, we know every time they do QE that people who already have assets get richer, and people who don't. And we've seen this over and over played out in multiple countries. And here, it's funny, Trump is pushing for QE so hard, but he got elected because of QE's failure. Because QE increased the gap between the rich and the poor, increased the populist surge, that's how he got elected. But now he's like, we need to do more QE. Well, now you're just making...
Because he wants to be reelected. Because he owns it now. And he's also attached himself to the success of his presidency being attached to the level of the Dow and the S&P.
And it's remarkable, if you look at this in the last 2 days, two new polls are out that show his approval numbers are down 5%. Now, he just got vindicated by the Mueller report. Dow is at all-time, or S&P at all-time highs, but his approval rating is dropping. I mean, this is as good as it gets. If those two things can't send his approval rating up to 67.
Which I'd also like to mention that you DM'd me when there wasn't a deal with China. you said, Trump is staying tough with China. I think he's going to be exonerated by the Mueller report. Great call. And, you made another call that was several months ago, and now we're almost in May. And I want an update, so I'm going to switch to Geo. You were talking about that you thought there would either be a hot war in Venezuela that we're involved with, and before that, that's before the Russians got there and the Chinese got there, Panama, or there'd be a war with Iran, which we just put on the new sanctions. People can't buy oil from them. We're targeting Hezbollah. Which one seems more likely to you, or is it even possible we get involved in both areas?
Well, at the time, I tweeted three things. One of three things that's going to happen: the Venezuela or Iran or some kind of
riot.
But something. Since Trump got elected, he's been pounding the table on how we need to do something about Chicago. We need to send feds in, send troops in. He's going to do something where he overrides local law enforcement in big blue cities. He sends in the National Guard, the Army, God knows what.
Well, he was going to send all the immigrants to blue districts on buses.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. So my prediction on that wasn't exactly, but it was pretty close to that in terms of where he's like, there's sort of this soft civil war where he's at war with blue cities. And, he's going to just come up with these ideas. Well, he's doing it at the border. I mean, you see, he's, sending troops to the border. He wants to bus immigrants and just drop them off in blue cities he doesn't like. If he doesn't like your particular city or you're voting against him, he's going to send a bus of immigrants and just open the door. And that isn't the same as necessarily as, tanks in the streets, but it is the same mentality, or it is sort of and it could escalate to that point where he just keeps coming up with these ideas, these authoritarian, fantasies of things he's going to do to fix everything. And I also think this is why it's so hard to find, people keep, the people looking for the collusion evidence with Russia. The problem is he identifies with the way Putin does things in an authoritarian way so much that Putin never needed to pay him $1. Putin doesn't need to send him a penny. He'll imitate Putin for free. He likes that way of governing. That's so you're not going to find that the check.
All right. Okay. So anyway, we're not supposed to get real political here on the show because there are people that support him, and what I'm interested in is I'm a little nervous about Russia and China being in Venezuela and us being on the other side, and let's face it, that Venezuela, I believe, has larger reserves than Saudi Arabia. So I'm wondering, do you think something's going to happen there this summer?
I think the biggest risk area is inside the United States right now because of these stunts he keeps pulling with sending, what he's going to send to different cities and these sending troops here, sending troops there, overriding local law enforcement. That to me, because Venezuela, you got Russia, you got China. So you have a Syria type situation in Venezuela where we want to overthrow it, but there's other countries already there helping out so it's very hard to actually accomplish that. So I think the biggest risk is actually inside the United States. I don't think it's going to be like a full blown, red versus blue state civil war. It's more of a few major cities versus Trump. Is the major, a few big blue cities.
So civil unrest and reactions in a long hot summer in America is what you're thinking.
No one makes a mistake. Somebody overrides local law enforcement, or there's some disagreement between where local powers don't want to let these forces in. It's not like a deliberate thing. It's more of someone. I mean, the Revolutionary War was started by like a snowball fight. Remember, they were throwing snowballs at those British soldiers, and they shot back. And I mean, it's things like that. And accidental. I think the biggest risk is inside the U.S. But just to squeeze in one more thing, you remember the last time we talked, I said even when Litecoin was down at near 30, that it's going back to 100 at least. It might not ever go.
You did make that call.
And Litecoin did get all the way back to 100, which actually the move to 100 was so crazy And the move in Bitcoin was so crazy up that it's not inspiring my long-term confidence in holding cryptos as like an investment, because it shows the only way something could be that unstable is if there's very few hands or there's a few big whales pushing the price around. So I still think if you get another chance at 100 or above and you were stuck in Litecoin or something, I would be exiting. But I did repeatedly say, even at the lows, just to...
Yeah, you were liked it at 30.
Yeah. And it's...
So a nice triple, Matt.
But that instability...
So now people, I listen to Matt when he sends me a direct message on Twitter. He's made some great calls. So, what do you want to wrap it with, buddy?
Well, just you can, I'm at Twitter, Panamaorange is my name, and I'm on StockTwits at Panamaorange, and you can follow, I do analysis. I say something about the markets almost every day there, and that's...
And why do you post? What's the motivation for you to post this stuff? For fun? Or is it a part of your mission since New Orleans? What is it?
Well, it's gotten to the point, it started just, started teaching myself to trade, like, back in 2008. And it's turned into, at this point, I'm moderately known. So I like to think I have some influence. I have quite a few followers in StockTwits, more than I do on Twitter. But so I like to think that, there's some influence in what opinions I have, especially because the metals market has been so wiped out at this point. So many people have been washed out that there aren't many people even doing good analysis.
All right. Well, I want to wrap it with this. What do you say to the bears that are looking for gold to trade under 1,000 and silver to trade $10 or $8 again? What do you say to them?
I say to them that silver is trading at its cost of mining here. You can go to SRS Rocco's Twitter page or go to his articles where he'll show you that as well. And gold is basically trading around its cost of mining. But more importantly, the technicals on gold and silver, back in 2015, every technician said it had to go under 1,000. I saw technician after chartist after chart. It's got to go under 1,000. But
there's still a camp.
Just like now, fundamentally, the sentiment got so bad, and it got so cheap relative to the cost of pulling it out of the ground that there was a reversal up, and we got the same setup here, where you got to be careful of what you've got to look at the fundamentals more when you're dealing with commodities, especially with like gold and silver. So even if chart wise though, if you go to my Twitter page right now, at the top I retweeted a chart. I put gold has been making higher lows since 2015 against the dollar going up, against the Dow going up, and that shows a lot of divergence, and it shows a big bullish ascending triangle, not a bearish ascending wedge, a bullish ascending triangle that's like 2.5 years long, or 3 years. I don't have the chart in front of me right now. You can go to my Twitter page and look at it, but the point is, it's those higher lows. It shouldn't be able to make those higher lows, but it keeps doing that. And once let's see, pull the phone away from my face.
You're showing the ascending triangle in gold, and you're showing like kind of a wedge symmetrical triangle in silver. Why gold merely needs to hold 1250s to trigger an extremely steep breakout, and silver back to 25.
Right, because silver's been building a big symmetrical triangle for years and years, and that's more indecisive. But if gold's pattern being more bullish, if it leads silver up, as it often does off of lows, because that's why the gold silver ratio goes crazy, and people, because generally the strongest hands in metals, just like in stocks, are professional hands, and they tend to be in gold, not in silver. So at lows, people panic out of silver, but the people who are in gold, the big institutions,
strong hands, and central banks.
Right.
So why don't we wrap it with this, Panama? Don't wait to buy gold and wait. At least physical, rather than leverage.
Silver, if you have the space to store it, I'd recommend silver. If you don't have the space to store it, then find the cheapest gold coins from SD Bullion. It's a really good company. Their phone customer service is amazing. They have like free insurance shipping if you spend over $100. So I'd go with SD Bullion and get.
What was the other one that you recommended to me? Provident? Was that the name of it?
Yeah, Provident's good. There's also JM Bullion. SD has really good phone customer service in my experience, and that's like their claim to fame, that we have really good customer service. So if you're just starting out, I would gravitate towards SD because they tend to be cheap with almost everything they have, and they're very good at dealing with like new customers. But if you can't sit around and wait to sign for a package, and some people can't because they're at work, then call your local coin shops. Find 2 or 3 local coin shops, because prices vary at local shops. There's a lot of variance, and just go with whoever the cheapest. I'm looking for the cheapest gold, and look for the cheapest silver you have. And go with.
So congratulations on being able to carry a horse on your back. Great shot of you, Panama. And his Twitter handle, Pete, is at Panamaorange, not Agent Orange. Panama, like the country, orange. So thanks very much, buddy. It was great having a talk with you, and keep in touch, and I appreciate you keeping me in the loop of what you're thinking. So good hunting, my trading warrior brother.
All right, you too. Thanks for having me.
Okay, everyone, that's at Panamaorange. You could follow him on Twitter and StockTwits. That's a wrap for us. Let me see what the crude's doing before I say goodbye. Okay, so we need to take out the 65.50 level for there to be a problem to take it back to the next pivot at 6463. See everyone tomorrow. You're welcome, Pete. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. See everyone tomorrow. Adios, and thanks again, Panama.